So in this video, I will discuss about the TCL commands which are available in SQL. So TCL stands for Transaction Control Language. So there are certain commands present in SQL known as TCL commands that help the user manage the transactions and that take place in database. So whenever we have learned DDL and DML commands in our previous discussion, we have seen we have created a table and then we have dropped the table, we have altered the table. Sometimes we have performed some operation using DML commands like we have inserted some values, we have updated the values, we have deleted the values. And then we have learned about the DCL commands, that is data control language, where we have learned how to give the permission to the user to perform any operation on the currently present data in your database. So in DCL commands, we have learned grant and revoke two commands, where, and by the use of these two comments, we have learned how to give the permission to a specific user to make any change in the currently available data in the database. Okay, so using grant comment, we have given the permission. That means the administrator can give a permission to a specific user to make any change like select, update, or delete. Okay, and by revoking, by using the revoke comment, the administrator can also release the permission from the specific user. Now, what is the requirement of this TCL commands or transaction control language commands? So whenever we perform any operation in database like insertion, deletion, updation, that all are or generally called the transaction. Okay, when we are doing any operation or manipulation, that all are called the transaction. Now, the transaction can also be controlled using some SQL command, and that commands are available under this transaction control language. So now we'll see what those commands are and why it is required. Because after performing every transaction, whether the performing every transaction, that transaction or the operations are made on your database are not permanent. It's all the transactions, these all the transactions are temporary only. Okay, so to make it permanent or to get after doing some wrong transaction, if you want to get back the previous or original structure of your database, then is there any way out in structure query language to do all these things? Yes, your my answer is yes. So by using this transaction control language commands, you can easily do it. So transactions are important for maintaining the integrity and consistency of data. Suppose you are handling multiple database and you are doing multiple operations or transaction over on the database. Now, when the changing will be are required to save, or when the change data you can get uh, you can get if you want to get back the previous data, then it is possible using this TCL commands. So before doing any transaction, or sorry, before knowing them, we have to be uh, aware of these things, that whatever the operation we perform in one database, this all are considered as a transaction. So, what are the commands are available in SQL transactions or TCL control language? Those are: first one is begin or start transaction, second one is commit, third one is rollback, and fourth one is save point. So now I will discuss each one of this one by one. First one is begin transaction. So begin transaction is one command uh, that is available in TCL language. This command is used to start a new transaction. It marks the point at which the data referenced in the transaction is logically and physically consistent. So the syntax can be begin transaction. You can write simply the word begin and the transaction, and then you can stop it by using the semicolon. Otherwise, you can write start transaction. But in many SQL databases, the transaction starts implicitly. That means by default, it will start with any SQL statement that accesses and modifies the data. So, explicit use of begin transaction is not well as always required or necessary. Like in MySQL, all the transaction begins implicitly or by default. But for other databases like Oracle, sometimes for Oracle's SQL Server, it is required to write this begins transaction or starts transaction uh, before doing any operation. Next one is commit. So commit means it is same as like the save operation in Microsoft Word. Whenever we do some documentation or something, we add something, we write something, we always save the data using the save command, right? Save option. So like that, commit is one command, TCL command available in SQL, using which we can save the changes we have made on our database. So used to end your current transaction, as I have told, all the transactions are temporary only. So to make it permanent, we can use this commit command. What is the syntax? What are the syntax are required to make the permanent changes in your database? That is only this, by writing only this commit statement, you can make the permanent change in your database. Suppose you have done any insert operation or any delete operation in your database, and after right after that, if you write the commit comment, it will be permanently deleted from the record, will be permanently deleted from the database. It will, you will anyone will not be able to get back again. So this is the example. Select star from staff where allowance equals to 400. So you are selecting some data, and you are after performing this select statement. Suppose you are writing this comment statement, that means that data will be permanently saved in your database. Next. Next one is rollback in SQL. Next command, TCL command is rollback. So rollback in SQL is a transaction control language that is used to undo the transaction that you have not been set in database. So after using commit statement, you cannot get back your data because commit means you have permanently saved the changes. But if you have done some transaction but not used the commit statement, that and you want to do the undo operation, then what command you will use in SQL? Obviously the command rollback. So here select star from employees where allowance is 400, and after that, suppose you have not committed this command, this query. So next, if you are writing rollback means you will get back the data. What step during commit is written by rollback. Next, another example I can give you. Suppose you are instead of doing this select operation, suppose you are using delete start from employees where allowance is equal to 400. So the 400 allowance data record will be deleted. Now, suppose you have saved, after this you have written commit. That means the delete operation will be permanent in your database. So after this, if you use rollback your data, you will not get back your data. But suppose you have not used the commit comment immediately after this delete operation, then if you write the rollback, then that means you will get back your previous data in your database. Next one is save point. The rollback command can also be used with the save point command to jump to a save point in any ongoing transaction. the save points are like checkpoints. Suppose, they temporarily save a transaction up to where the transaction can be rolled back. So that means, you in your Microsoft operation also you have seen you can undo. You can uh, do the undo of changes. For your changes, you can go for the undo option. So here also you can do the undo operation using the rollback, but up to which point you can get back your previous or original data, that can be also defined by another command, that is save point. So what is the syntax is required? What syntax is required to write the command in your SQL query? Obviously this keyword save point space then one save point name. That is, it can be any variable name like sp, sp1, sp2, anything, and then you can terminate the sentence by this semicolon. So you can roll back to a save point using roll back to save point name. So roll back to suppose sp1. Let's see one example. So here, employee, there is one table, update employee set name, and after that, suppose you have created one set point A. So set point one set point is created. Now you are suppose doing another transaction, insert into employee values, and you are inserting some values. So one row has been created, and then you are also another, again you are giving another set point B. So another set point is created. So thus the set, you can create the set points. Now after this, suppose you want to roll back, or if you want to do some, if you want to get the previous data using the rollback statement, then if you put the statement like delete from employee where id is equal to 1 set point 2, delete from employee where id is equal to 2 set point sp3, delete from employee where id is equal to 3, roll back to sp2. So here what we are giving roll back to sp2, that means the data where the id is equal to 1 was deleted. Now you want to get the data of id1 to id is equal to 1, but you have selected the set point up to sp2. That means you can, if you also, even after this, if you are writing the rollback, but it will provide the data for set point 3 and 2, but previous data, that means before that id is equal to 1 data will not be rollback here. Okay, so up to a point you can perform your undo operation. So what are the difference between the commit and rollback? So commit permanently saves the change made by the current transaction, whereas rollback undo the changes made by the current transaction. The transaction cannot